him? Did he instigate this? Did a player on the team bring it up? Obviously, we heard the rumors again of the Mets proposing to other teams that they'd be willing to move on from Nimmo's contract. I didn't think they actually would, and they did. And now this is the first shakeup of what could potentially be multiple shakeups. Is Pete Alonso not going to be back, right? Is Edwin Diaz not going to be back? This is just the beginning of that. This is a seismic move. I just remember 2016, 2017 Brandon Nimmo and seeing what he's become as a big leaguer. He's out the door. So we have to kind of expect Marcus Semien now, who is a good player. But I don't know if it's a sizable replacement, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, I agree. Look, last year, major down.
I don't know. I guess I'll just start. It's Sunday night, so I don't really expect there must be football on or something. Is it live? Yeah. So hopefully people can watch it later. But I just wanted to go over a couple of things. I'm concerned that tomorrow, hey KYP, I'm concerned that tomorrow there will be pressure on the stock. So that's the main reason I'm coming on. How are you, KYP? How's Brooklyn? I used to know somebody that lived up in, well, I knew two different people. One person lived way out in Brooklyn. I can't remember. It's just a long way by cab, by the Indian takeaways, and all those restaurants. But I knew another guy with his wife lived down near where the bridge comes across. It's expensive part of town. I can't remember the name of it. Brooklyn Heights, maybe Brooklyn Heights. I'm glad everything's good. I'm glad everything's doing well. I guess I don't know who user is. I should know. How are you? The code is coming up weird. I don't know. But anyway, I just want to remind people that it's dangerous out there. Any stock under $5 or under $1 billion roughly in market cap, or any company listed on the over-the-counter or the NASDAQ who needs capital in North American markets is going to be destroyed by the markets. And since we're shareholders, we get destroyed. Now, I think Railtown is a exception to that, but that doesn't mean the other side isn't constantly practicing their strategy to destroy. And I think tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday, we could see punishment. I could be wrong, and I don't think it'll last, but it just kind of kept me up over the weekend because the chart doesn't look good. There's no reason for the stock not to go down. And I'm talking temporarily, I'm talking a day, 2 days. For the positive, how to handle it is to put buy orders in underneath the market. But I think it could go, I could be wrong, but it could easily spike to like 27.5 cents. And I don't think it'll go low. I have a chart, I'll show you. But when a company decides to trust the system, trust the attorneys, trust that there's oversight, trust that there's integrity in the over-the-counter or in the NASDAQ or in many of the lower priced Canadian markets. They're just playing with fire. And so to announce February 11th that they were going to acquire AIP, and it's now Thanksgiving, and they haven't been able to close that transaction. To put it mildly, it's concerning. I do not think there's a problem, but it doesn't matter what I think. The other side is relentless in selling stock, multiplying shares of non-existent stock and selling it. And we know they've availed themselves, whoever they are. It can be a many-splendored thing. It can be day traders and little cowards, and it can also be some arbitrage. But the one thing is, they don't come in and buy in multiple shares. They only sell. They only sell. And when a company doesn't recognize that, they are always at the edge of complete disaster. Essentially, what the criminals, the shorts, this systemic thieving of all North American markets, it's based on one thing. Companies have a value, and then they have a certain number of shares outstanding. So you have a per share implied price or market price, but you have a per share value on each company's shares. Well, their goal is to devalue those shares, to get the company to print new shares, but they also print endless amounts of shares. And the sheer volume of stock that floods the market destroys any buying pressure. Eventually, I mean, there's ups and downs, but inevitably it's always disastrous for companies and shareholders. I think Railtown's different because Railtown did not take any toxic financing. However, that doesn't mean they're immune from this constant devilish downward pressure. And there's probably three things going on in the minds. Look, it's all computerized. It's all computerized selling. But there's three things if any eyeball actually looks at it. One is Railtown agreed to buy AIP for 50 million shares. That had a valuation of roughly $25 million by memory. You can look it up. Hey, I just got an email from Eric Swalwell. Didn't he go out with Fang Fang? Why do I get these emails? I know why. I donated to Bernie Sanders years ago. Now that deal it's still worth about that at 50 cents. I should look at what the price is. That's Canadian dollars. Yeah, it's still basically that price in Canada. It's 48.5. But if they can get that stock down to 35 cents or 30 cents or 25 cents Canadian, that's how they're thinking. If they have any thought in it. It's a pattern, it's just a pattern with every stock. We have to analyze it. We have to get all intricate with it. They just know it works every single time. So anyway, just to use, that deal was priced nominally at 50 cents a share. If the shorting can get it to 25 cents Canadian, they're hoping that AIP says, we're going to walk away. You got to do it for 100 million shares. Well, by definition, it's a self-fulfilling trade. I do not think that's going to happen here, because I think all the principals are sensible enough to know that they should just close the deal as agreed and get on down the highway. But that's the pressure that's going on, and it does not help that they can't close the deal. They're incapable of it. They just do not have the capacity, the talent, or the capability of closing that transaction. I'm sure it'll get done, but guys, I don't know what happens up in Canada, but Canada seems to run at a pace that's a mite different than down in the United States. But this week, you might as well write off the rest of the year in terms of deals getting done and all that. It's just, it's a big limbo. Anyway, so that's number one. They're trying to break that deal or cause the need for more shares to be issued to close it. It's the same strategy, every single stock. It's not peculiar to Railtown. But I really do think the deal is going to go through as formulated, but they can't seem to get it done. They just can't. I mean, I don't want to put any motives or try to assign why. It's just a fact. They have not been able to close that deal and announce it. It's a shame, because the company has wasted all of this time, at least in the market perception time. I'm sure they haven't wasted the time behind the scenes. And now it's the holidays. So anyway, that's number one. Number two, they hired Canaccord Genuity. Canaccord Genuity, there's 3,000 people there when I looked it up. I'm not saying everyone at Canaccord's in on it. It's probably 30 people at the most. But maybe like 15, you know. But Canaccord Genuity is notoriously aligned with the so-called naked short selling. That's how they make their money in their prime brokerage side. And on their investment banking side, for example, whoever is selling the stock in Canada down from 90 cents to 50 cents, and if they can get it going lower, is taking them several months, many months. That money sits in a prime brokerage account, cash, and there's these open, non-delivered share positions no one cares about. No one cares about it. And so this is the second thing on the mind of the shorts, if they give it any thought. Their computers are set up to notice it. Canaccord. Well, if there's money needed to close the transaction, or if the companies need capital, and Canaccord's the exclusive agent, the shorts know all we need to do is just sell this stock. Either we'll benefit from another short getting the phone call from Canaccord, hey, we're seeking 20 million or 10 million or whatever. It's a pattern with all stocks. It's not specific. These numbers are not applicable to Railtown, but we're seeking 10 million in this new at the money offering with 1.5, 2.5 warrant coverage. All these tricks to get CEOs think, this is a good deal. But it's just a way to keep punishing the stock and to get a hedge in case something goes against them. But it really gives the stock loan desks and I suppose some form of derivative contract a buttress with which to continue the punishment of the stock price. And you've already got the cash up there. It crosses hands. The bankers make some money. Hey, we did our hard work. And the stock just heads down, down, down. They're trying to do that here. I don't think it's going to work, but that's why they sell, because it always works. Think of a Canadian company, MMAT. Great stories. Just punish, punish, punish. And you know who goes along with it? The attorneys, the board, the advisors. And if someone like me, or in the case of MMAT, I recall John Berta said, "Don't do it." They all said, "Oh, you're crazy. You're off your rocker." These are reasonable men and women. They know. Well, it gets destroyed. So I'm telling you, these are the modus operandi of the short. I do not think Railtown's in this position, but they do themselves no favors taking 10 or 11 months to close a friendly deal, because in that prolonged vacuum of information, and now we're going into yet another holiday. August was holiday. I was right about that. You holiday, I holiday. I told you that story, didn't I? A friend of mine, I have a picture of her over here, but a friend of mine who I was on the board of this art museum, and she's an artist. She's now married and I think has 2 kids, but might have 3. Has 2 or 3 dogs and lives down in North Carolina, or maybe down in Alabama. But she got a great husband, great, wonderful guy. He was great with my dog Lucky. He's rugby, no, not rugby. Rugby, I guess. Not maybe Australian football. Maybe he played Australian football. Anyway, but when she was younger, there was across the street from my house, there was a great restaurant where everybody would gather, and I was to meet her, I think, for the first time. With one of her other friends brought her. So we're there at the corner on the bar, and I usually would take that spot, but I guess I was in the middle. But anyway, behind the bar was this Turkish guy, great guy, big, tall guy, always happy, always upbeat, always kind. But he was actually, I think, on their Turkey's Olympic team for volleyball. I might be getting that story wrong, but and his name was Byrum. I think that's spelled Bayrum, Byrum. And so she took the short name. She would call herself, when I was introduced to her, Holly. And hi, are you having a drink if you want? And then I'd talk. So anyway, then Byram would bring everything. I think we were having wine. But then I'm off talking to I forget what. But she ends up, he zooms in on her because she is, I'm sure, but at the time she was quite lovely and engaging, and so he started his rap going, and he asked her name, and she said, I'm Holiday, and you're Holiday, I'm Holiday, you Holiday, I Holiday. Byram means holiday in Turkish, which of course it doesn't, but I always make fun of that. You Holiday, I Holiday. I wish I had those kind of lines when I was tall and playing volleyball. Anyway, so the automatic strategy of the shorting, and everything's on their side. CEOs cannot accept it, but the regulators allow it. The prime brokers encourage it. There are no market makers. It's just a checkbox on the exemption for Reg Show, at least in the United States. There's no natural buying in the United States. There's more up in Canada. But there's no accountability for lying. Mismarking tickets. Selling stock you don't own and you haven't located, which is illegal. But you know what? The volume is so high and the commission is so important. People just take it and look the other way. So the two strategies they have. One is, let's see if we can bust the deal or at least expand the amount of shares required to close the deal. Two, if the company is going to raise money, obviously they're going to do it through Canaccord. And Canaccord is, if it's not number one in Canada for aiding and abetting this business, it's close. So they know if they just punish the stock, put cash in their prime brokerage account, eventually they're going to get a phone call from a so-called investment banker saying, or an institutional trader, hey, we got one. How much you got? 15 million? We'll take it all. Or, well, we can't give it all to you. All right, we'll take 10 million. Boom. And then the structure of it, as we've learned, just punishes it afterwards. And then it becomes the death spiral, the MMAT. The third thing here is a little bit specific to Railtown AIP. But if they studied it, in order for AIP and Railtown to roll up these companies, they're going to have to issue stock. So what goes into the head of the shorts? If they think about it at all, it's all computerized. But this is the theory behind it that they have. Well, we'll just destroy the price. Let me give you an example. If in this document, this presentation, and Marty Party, I could not find your email. I looked for it. I'm sure it's there. I just couldn't find it. In this presentation, they mention the November investor presentation. They mention that they've already identified 3 to 5 companies they want to roll up this presentation. I don't know how to guess what those 3 to 5 companies could be doing in revenue. The 80-20 rule would be 320. If you do the 80-20 rule on 180 companies, I think 20% is 36 companies, and then it would be 320 million. 20% of 36 companies would be 7, and they do 80% of 320. I don't know if this is a fair way to do it. So those 7 companies would do 256. So 20% of 7, or let's say 20% of 8, because it's a round number. No, it doesn't work. That'd be 256. So 7 or 8 companies would be doing 256. Let's just divide it by, I don't know if this is, divide it by 8 and multiply it by 3. Yeah, all right, let's just say the 3, that's 96 million. Let's just say the 3 to 5 companies that they've already identified that they want to roll up. Let's say they are projected to do, let's just say it's 3 of them. They're projected to do 100 million. So in the forward revenue, or they're doing it now, whatever, it doesn't matter. So if Railtown plans, for example, on 100 million at, I don't know, they're going to buy them at a discount. I don't know what metric they're going to use, but let's just say they got a great price and they're going to issue 25 million shares at $5. If the stock's up there, this is what they're going to do. Well, here's what the criminals are thinking. Well, if we can get the stock down to 5 cents, 10 cents, or we can just keep it at 50 cents. Instead of issuing 25 million shares, they'll issue 250 million shares, or they might have to issue 1 billion shares. So what they try to do, whatever is good, they try to destroy it, the value of whatever is good on a per share basis. Just think about MMAT. So those are the 3 things going on if a human being's even looking at Railtown. They don't need it to look at it. The computer read MOU, it read LOI, it read acquisition, it read in a few weeks. And then it reads that the strategy is acquisitions in AIP. So it just meets all the requirements. Just keep the pressure on, keep the stock down, keep selling. That way the companies, instead of their strategy to issue 10 or 20 million shares, we can get them to issue 200, 400, 500 million shares. And by the time it's collapsed, none of the other companies are going to be interested to roll into it, and we win, and we've done this great job cleansing the markets. And then we can come make fun of William because he's a crackpot. That's what is going on. It's not, it doesn't take a genius to figure that out. It's what happens in every single stock. any stock under $5, under $7, under $1 billion on the over-the-counter markets in the United States and on NASDAQ will be destroyed by the system. And CEOs do themselves a great but understandable disservice if they listen to the lying attorneys, the lying financial types, the lying or misguided board members that have been installed to protect the hedge funds and investment. It's not an investment. So anyway, that's what's going on. And it has been going on. That selling has been going on since February. And we know that in the United States, the short position is 50 to 60 million. However, what we don't know, I bet a lot of that is arbitrage, so we don't know the net. What arbitraging Canada's price versus US price. Flashboy, nanosecond. Why do you need nanosecond trading in stocks that would otherwise not even trade by appointment? Why? So they can steal. Well, anyway, that mentality has been going on, and the pressure of selling, they finally broke down below the 200-day, and they broke significantly below where I saw some support. I don't see any support really where it's hanging right now. So I expect tomorrow they're going to hit it, and maybe Tuesday. And I do not expect Railtown to be able to close this deal. They've shown no ability to close the deal, none. They've put out a filing October 6th with a PR October 8th, and then on or around November 6th, they put out, both of them were meaningless. We intend to buy AIP, but we haven't done the homework. The dog ate the homework, but once the dog brings it back in out of the rain, we'll dry it and we'll copy it over onto a new piece of paper and we'll get it done. Trust us. They haven't been able to do it. So I think tomorrow there's a real chance of further pressure on selling. And I probably am not going to come on early. I've got to go run some errands. I just have to keep my life together, and that's why I'm coming on tonight to warn you that. Now, what does it mean for the background of the company or the goals of the company? I don't think it's going to mean anything, but it could scare you. There'll be all this bragging here that they're going to get it down. But here's the thing. As long as the company doesn't do a deal with Canaccord Genuity will create an at-the-market offering or some sort of formula in there or some warrants, and then they'll provide the vehicles or the methodology that their best client. Railtown is Canaccord's client once. These criminals that run trillions of dollars, those are Canaccord's bread and butter. So if Railtown does a financing with Canaccord, that's like, I'll just try this one shot of heroin, see what it's like. What a gamble. I don't think they're going to do that, though. Secondly, if Railtown had already done a toxic deal, I'd be nervous, but they haven't. Thirdly, Railtown does not need to raise money. Railtown has cash, and they have enough of these, the employee options and plain vanilla warrants that can be exercised or may have been exercised. There's a whole schedule. And when I look at it, there should be money coming in from those. And that's good for us. The only other stupid thing, I'm not calling the company stupid. I'm just calling the whole situation stupid. The only other thing that would be disastrous is if the company decides under pressure to roll up those 3 to 5 companies while the stock's 40 cents, 50 cents in Canada. That'll be dilutive. But I don't think any of those things are going to happen. I don't think the company is going to do a roll up until the stock's 5, 6, 7, 8, call it $1 billion market cap. They can do it next year. I don't think they're going to do it financing with Canaccord, because Canaccord will screw the company, in my judgment. And I don't think, I forget the other thing I said. But anyway, they don't need capital. They don't need money. Anybody would like it. So I think we're more than going to be okay. We will be okay. But the modus operandi of these relentless stealers remains in place as long as Railtown is unable, which by all evidence they remain so, unable to close the AIP deal. So in that environment, they keep the pressure on. I think Railtown is going to close the AIP deal. My guess is by Wednesday. But, I wouldn't be surprised if the company, I don't know, if the attorneys had to take a break for, I don't know, drive their kid to Arizona Baseball League or something. But leaving a surprise out, I think the AIP deal will close by Wednesday. That's more than 10 days from the November 14th deadline that they put out there. But let me show you a couple things before we talk about what is ahead for Thanksgiving week and holiday December. You holiday, I holiday. I think it's going to be tough for this. There's no question this stock price has been broken. And I think on the face of it, we're going to face a few tough days. That's all right. We can get through it. Can it turn around quickly and run back up? Yes. Can there be a reason that the stock surprises us up to the upside? Yes. But I think we have to get ready. This selling pressure is computerized. It's a computer program, and it goes back and forth. And they keep pressing, and when it breaks, they get an air pocket, they drive it down. We're in the middle of an air pocket. There's no support. There's no buying. That's the other thing. My information for many months was that there are a lot of buyers in Canada. The evidence is there are no buyers in Canada in size. So that's up to here. This is up to tonight. And so I'm talking about what we're going to deal with Monday, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday next week. That time frame, I think, is going to be tough. And that, what can you do proactively? If you want to buy more, you can put in orders in the United States. I'll show you a chart, but maybe at 27.5 cents, maybe 25 cents. Well, you might get it. You might not, but you might get it. I don't expect the stock to go up when the AIP deal closes. I think it'll be a completely ineffectual press release. It'll say something like there's a consolidated amalgamation of a tripartite arrangement in a barricaded stockade of a document. I don't know. It'll be a bunch of, you were going to read it and go, huh? What does that mean? Just like everyone else. There won't be any revenues in it. So the shorts can continue to sell. It'll be a big ho-hum in terms of immediate stock price action. But it'll set the stage for good price action maybe a week from now. I don't think so. I think it's going to be at least 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now. This stock price, unless there's a surprise or a buyer shows up, this stock price I don't want you thinking technical analysis is the be all, particularly when I read it. But I think the pattern is broken. So it's going to take a while. As I always say, if you have a heart attack, when the hospital releases you, you're not going to get up and run a marathon. It takes a little while to get back into shape. So it's going to take a few days. But let me just show you a couple things. And I'll try not to go on too late tonight because I'm sure you guys have things to do. I just want to show you these two charts. I think this is the US Railtown chart. It is. And of course, my lines are not exact. But in this downward parallelogram, almost, I tried to, by drawing this line here on a diagonal, I was being really generous. I actually think it should be up a little bit. And if you were to draw that parallel to the top line, tighter to the top line, the stock has broken down. I'm trying to be kind and show that maybe it really hasn't broken down, but the stock has broken down. Now, here, this horizontal, that could be support, and that might be all we have to do. I can't show you in the middle, but over here, there's, not in this first cluster, but in the middle of the chart there's that top, there's the top there. That's the support that I see. But it's not that significant. The green line, and you could use the top of the green line, or if the line were a little thinner, it might not go down quite as much. But I think the support is really reflected from over on this side with this sideways cluster of trades that couldn't break out. Then all of a sudden it did break out, and then it pulled back. It kept bouncing there. And then, of course, it broke down and then rallied. So that is 27.5. I think the shorts are going to try to make it spike downward. And it's going to suck. Everybody's going to be angry with me if that happens. Now, there's a chance it stops right here. But if there's no news, there's no chance that it's going to hold here. If there is news about AIP, it may or may not hold it. But what you might get is a sell-off with an attempt at volume, and I hope none of you sell, because you could see a give up, a capitulation, which reflects, it could be just I don't know, a handful of trades down here, and then the stock snaps back up and gets back up in this range, and it's back at the 200-day moving average. And that's the key trend reversal, and that's all you need to start going up. But I'm a little nervous about tomorrow morning. Now the blue line, it's not, it's kind of the top of that blue line. And it's really where all of these trades here, the lowest all these trades went was that kind of that blue line, except for this one inaccurate spike. Anyway, that's 25 cents. I don't think it'll go that low. I hope it holds here. And if we're surprised and they actually can ever get the file off the regulator's desk or the operations manager's desk or the or whatever. I'm just using my experience, or the where the attorneys, wherever it's held up. Maybe this is enough, and it can pop back a little bit, and we don't have to test any of this downward crap. I hope we don't. I hope I'm wrong. But even if AIP news comes out or is filed, I don't expect this stock to go suddenly to some huge new number. It'll come up into here, and it's going to take a little time, unless there's a surprise. Anyway, that's the United States. This is Canada. It's a little better. It's a little better in Canada. I think that's a pretty accurate lower line. But you could also do the same thing. You could tighten it and say that this is broken below the bottom diagonal. This yellow horizontal, I think that's a pretty good support over here. But you would have argued this support would have held by the middle of that chart, and it didn't. But man, that green level, maybe not as low as the green, maybe a little bit higher, but you're talking 42.5 cents, 45 cents. So I'm not trying to be doom and gloom. I'm not trying to be doom and gloom on Railtown. I just have a really bad feeling about tomorrow morning. And I think it's a chance to buy. I don't want you panicking out, but and I don't blame you if you get pissed off at me. All right. Let me go to your comments, and then I want to show you, that's my concern, short-term concern. But I want to give you a couple of positives as well about this. Michael Burry and the circular AI financing and the panic that AI is in a correction, all of that stuff. It will, if there's a panic, it'll spill over not only to all stocks, it'll spill over to these other stocks like Railtown. It won't spill over to Langchain because Langchain doesn't trade. But I looked up Railtown's market, of course, is software and software development. And the multiples are high there. It's not really, it is AI, but it's also software development. And is that going to disappear? I want to show you some of those before because I don't want to leave you worried about sort of, I'd say Thanksgiving week, unfortunately, it's going to be tough this week. The next week, 50-50. The following week, I think we'll start seeing some better, we'll start feeling better. But it's going to be a tough couple of weeks. Or could be a tough couple of weeks. Now, surprises could come, and but it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like they can get anything done. It's just one of those situations. They're going to test this to the maximum, not on purpose. I'm not blaming anybody, but the markets are completely corrupt. But CEOs don't want to believe that, and boards don't want to believe it, But anyway, all right. Let me go through some of this, and then I'll there's KYP again, and there's it's Jim. Okay, so it's YouTube user. I don't see that. Solomon's Treasure. Hello, Solomon's Treasure. How are you? Hey, Darren. And hey, Mike. Silver Rocket at night. Sky rockets at night. Afternoon delight. Hey, Pat. Hey, Jack. Good evening. All right, here's Ward. What does he say? Good evening, William. Before you start your show tomorrow, look into a Bill C. 59 that was passed by the Biden administration. This could be another reason on their IRT delays. All right. Bill C-59. Yeah, Ward, I shouldn't get upset at anybody. It's just frustration because we don't know the reasons. I'm sure everyone's working hard. I don't think anyone's trying to hurt the company. But it's a real blind spot. CEOs are inclined to listen to attorneys, listen to board members, listen to slickster investment bankers, and that's where know, at some point you tip over and you can't get up. Scott Van Dyke, seeing this dip as an opportunity. Exactly. It is an opportunity. As long as the company does not ever issue shares in a toxic financing or issue shares down here to acquire the AIP roll-ups, or I guess blink. As long as the company doesn't blink and they get this AIP deal done with 50 million shares, we should be all right. But man, keeping the news flow absent just allows the gremlins to play. Scott, news should be a catalyst. Yeah, I think I made a list. This morning when I got alarmed looking at the chart. And I think there are several events that are going to happen over the next month to 2 months. But this, I'd say by Wednesday, they'll close the AIP deal and file it. Like I say, I don't think it's going to do anything to the stock price, nothing. And in fact, the selling, if there's no revenue explained, which there won't be, or if there's no buying that comes in from institutions, which there won't be, at least not the same day, the pressure of the short selling complex will be just keep selling. So I don't expect that news to actually move the stock, but it might firm it. It might firm it up. And then, Scott, I think there'll be additional revenue announcements. When, I don't know. The two areas of revenue announcements would be, I think TELUS needs to explain their arrangement a little bit better. Will we see it? I don't know, but that's one place. The other is anything in their pipeline that's been building up and needs to be announced, that could come out. Those things could come out this week, might be next week. If revenue announcements or sales announcements come out without revenue, again, I don't think they'll do very much to the stock price. It'll firm it up, but it won't do much. I think the capital research or research capital company is the most likely one that'll put out research soonest. And if they close the AIP deal by Wednesday, and I would say if also TELUS comes out with some sort of description of the, further to our agreement, I would say that capital research report would follow those two announcements. So I'd say not this week, the following week, which could be good. But capital research didn't move the stock a year and a half ago, so I don't think it'll move it all by itself. Now, if other research comes out from bigger companies who may have institutional followings, that could start to move it. And I would say the soonest that'll happen is December. The annual report should be out by the end of this month, give or take. I don't think that'll move the stock, but there could be a management discussion in there that's quite interesting. We will go into a period where wealth advisors will tell their clients, why don't you just go ahead and sell it and take the tax loss? So we may face a weakness there. And Scott, I agree with you. Should there be tax loss selling, that's an opportunity to buy the stock. The roll-ups, if they do them this year, they'll issue too much stock. But if they do it January, February, those will be positive announcements, I think, by then. And all along, you can see revenue deals. The key to me, whether or not the company wants to tell us about revenue or their projections, I hope they can do it with the analysts. I hope they can do it with the institutional investors. Now, obviously, they're going to tell us enough to fulfill the disclosure rules, and maybe disclosure rules are fulfilled by research, I suppose it's as long as the information gets out there. So yeah, Scott, I think it's a buying opportunity, but and I hope I'm wrong, but it's not going to be pleasant to see it spike down tomorrow or Tuesday this week. But all of this, the reason I went through that long explanation is it's what they do. It's what the shorts do. It's not specific, other than the risk of the roll-ups. They'll think, well, if we can keep the stock at 10 cents, they'll roll up these companies into oblivion. It's not going to happen. I think these guys are seasoned, but the strategy, that's my point. That's the strategy. Just keep the pressure on. And as long as there's no break in information, they have a free field to play. And it's frustrating. So anyway, I think if I had money, I would go in tomorrow, maybe at 27.5 cents, 30 cents, 32.5, and 3 different orders maybe. If you want to throw another one in at 25 cents, I don't think it'll go off, but you never know. If it goes that low, it's going to snap back like a rubber band. It'll snap back. It'll be just stretched too far. But man, it's just the vacuum of information allows these marauders to continue their crimes. We'll get through it. I think worst case, we have a volatile week this week, and then a flat November / first week of December, and then maybe we get some lift in the second or third week of December, and we just have to wait till January to start seeing strength. That's the nature of this delay. There may be good reasons for it, but it all works to the advantage of the criminal behavior. It all just walks into the hands of just this sucky system. Yeah, Scott's right. That's true. Stocks rarely do what you want them to do when you want them to. That's true. That's true about a lot of things in life. Oh, there's I'm Almost Legend. Surprising Sunday. Okay, I'm fused my legend. Just I don't think Railtown can close the deal. Oh, it's just my English. It's just my English. What I mean is, that's the frustration showing up. They haven't been able, I should have said it that way. They haven't been able to close the deal. And maybe I said they can't close the deal. That's just frustration conversationally coming out. I believe Railtown will close the deal. There's no evidence that they're able to, but I think they will. I'm Almost Legend. I apologize. That's just my words of frustration. Just not saying it very carefully. What I meant to say is from February 11th until now, there's no evidence they've been able to close the deal. None. Now, it doesn't mean they're not highly confident behind the scenes, but we don't know that. That's all I was trying to say. But no, I do think it'll get done. I believe the probabilities are that the deal will close by Wednesday, and it will be filed Wednesday afternoon. That's my guess. Or sooner, but I would think middle of the week. Yeah, I'm actually quite optimistic that our long waiting period is over. But what I was trying to start off with, I'm Almost Legend, is that when you delay things, you're just going closer and closer and closer to the buzzsaw or the mulcher. And if you get too close, you're going to fall down in and just get chewed up. And it's more that I was trying to describe that this is what the shorts prey on. They just keep the pressure on. And maybe that's how I said it. I can't remember. But to the shorts, it doesn't look like they're ever going to get it done, to the extent that a human being even thinks about it. But yeah, sorry, I don't mean to say they're not going to get. I don't think Railtown can close the deal. I don't remember if obviously I said it, but that's not how I feel. I think they are going to close the deal. Did I put a time frame on my statement? Yeah, I don't remember my riff, but I do think they are going to. But I was. I guess I'm not a good salesman. I can't hide the risk I see. That's all. But it's a short-term risk. It's not a risk the deal won't close, but it's a risk to a spike down in the stock price. Maybe I shouldn't have brought it up. A few minutes later, you said the company will be okay after they attack the next one. All right, I did say I don't think he'll do much for the price action. Let me just show you the chart again and be specific with it. I really don't know what's going to happen. Let's just use the Railtown chart. It's taking a while. Okay. I might have to drop your message. No, I don't. Okay. Let's just take this. I said if they attack it, I don't know if it'll be for a few days. I think it'll be tomorrow and Tuesday, but it could be a few days. And if the press release, I don't know if it'll be a press release. It might just be a filing. The deal's closed, which I'd say they can't seem to do. Well, do you see in any indication that they can get it done? I might have said that. It doesn't seem like they can get it done, but I believe they will. But the key is there's nothing to make the shorts afraid of their strategy. Anyway, look here. The stock, I don't know where it closed because it's very hard to read. 34 cents maybe. I don't see anything magical. I'm almost legend about that stock price. I don't see any reason to tell you that we've seen the lows. That's when I looked at this morning. I don't think there's anything here saying that this is support. It could be. It could, anything can happen. I mean, look over here. Well, I guess this one in the middle hit the bottom of the page, so it had to go up. But if you see the one in the middle of May, that's kind of an example of what I think the nightmare that, do you see in the middle of May where the stock broke down at the green line and it went down one day, then the next day the red, and it went all the way down to some number here? And then it popped right up, and then it went on its nice run for the next month and a half, 2 months. That's what I expect's ahead of us. I don't think it'll be that quick, but that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried that we're going to see, not all the way down to those numbers, but I'm worried that we're going to see tomorrow morning the attempt to get it down further. I could be wrong on almost lesson. I could be seeing ghosts. It could be a contrary indicator that if I'm seeing that risk, maybe it's all over with. I don't know. But I do not think that chart tells me that stock price is finished going down. So that's why. And then it won't do anything in the price. Okay, let's say the stock comes down to 32.5 cents and maybe spikes a little bit lower, but not all the way down to 27.5. Maybe it goes to maybe it goes down to 31 something, and it settles in at 32.5 tomorrow morning, and then maybe by the end of the day it's there. So let's go to Wednesday. Let's say it just stays around that level for the next 2 days, right in this 32, 34 cent range for Monday and Tuesday. And Wednesday, they close the deal and the stock and they file it. I would say the stock could recover on that news, but my point is it's not going to go much higher than here. So it'll go higher, maybe 40 cents, but that's not, I mean, that's where we were last week. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, it's not going to do, I don't think the announcement of the AIP deal immediately is going to make it go to 70 cents or 80 cents or something. I just think it'll be in this churning range for a little while. But what the AIP announcement sets up is that probably a day later, 2 days later, 3 days later, some of the other buyers can come into the stock if indeed there were any buyers precluded from buying. So that's a positive. It also sets up that TELUS can disclose what the arrangement is a little bit better. That's a positive. It might set up that the company can start talking about revenue transactions that they haven't been able to. That's a positive. And who knows, one of those revenue deals or two of them might be exciting. Well, then you could see, if you go to the middle of the page, you could see that huge jump upward happen. But if you go to the middle of May here, where the stock breaks down, and it snaps back up, and it gets back up to the yellow line, which is great, and it goes higher, which is also great. That's such a nice move. But then it had to come back down to test, as they always do, to see if what was resistance is now support. And then it continues its climb slowly, steadily. We'll feel good. I'm almost sledging we will feel good when this stock gets to 40 cents again. But in my mind, that's not much of a move. That's what I should be better with my words. I don't think it's going to do much for the price action. It'll go from 34 cents maybe to 40 cents. To me, that's not much. But it's going in the right direction. And it's not like, I don't want people hanging their entire expectation that the stock is going to go up on the closing of the AIP deal. At this point, I think it's more than priced in the market, and it's the minimum that the company should get done. So it'll stop the bleeding, and I don't think, look, if they announce the AIP deal, it's not going to go down. I mean, they're going to try to look. We're talking about two different things, I'm almost legend. We're talking about two different things. The shorts always attempt to make news look bad. So anything, they will try to sell it off initially. That's just mechanical, has nothing to do with the news. But if you're testing it for a couple of hours, 3 hours after the AIP deal, it's possible they'll try to sell it off. But I'd say within 48 hours to 72 hours, you'll start to see the stock strengthen. And if we're blessed with a real buyer, I think this area here, you might go sideways for a week. I'm trying to match what I see technically with the fundamentals. And as much as I'd like to tell you that the news, therefore, we're off to the races, this breakdown in the stock price was destructive to I wonder if I have that other chart. I wonder if I have it. Probably not. Probably not. Well, here's one. This is a little older. I'm Almost Legend. It's taken a while. Okay, there it is. I think, yeah. So this pattern, I didn't draw it perfectly, but I'm Almost Legend. This pattern, I think, was setting up for support right in here. And if the stock had broken upward, that was extremely bullish. This pattern, to me, I mean, everybody reads charts differently. That pattern has been broken. That support has been broken. That setup has been broken. So it just takes time to rebuild. That's technically. And so, yes, I'm trying to project what it might do technically. Fundamentally, the news is going to be great. That fundamental news is going to be this acquisition of AIP Partners is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And for the intermediate term and the long run, it's going to be terrific. But that pattern has been broken. We're in a new world. And I wish I could tell you I see something bullish here. I don't. That's all I was trying to say. Let me finish with your point. You said that candidate, right? Oh. Can't close it is really confusing. Is giving a lack of confidence. Well, I don't mean to give you a lack of confidence in everything else I'm saying. It's saying that everything else, the company is what I hope the company will do. What is going on? What's going on is there is a February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, 10-month period of time that the company hasn't disclosed anything meaningful. I think this document is terrific, and it has a lot of good information in it, and it's very positive. But I think for this 10-month period, the company has not been able to do a marketing campaign, a full-on research, talk to investors type campaign, because they have not been able. I mean, can you argue with me? They haven't been able to close the transaction. There's no evidence that they have been able to close that transaction. What's the practical effect of it? I'm Almost Legend. If you are an inside trader, if you own a large percentage of these companies, if you're a consultant, any of the investors in some of the companies to be acquired, or other companies that have drifted in and out of discussions that maybe the bankers have come in, you have probably had to sign an NDA or a non-compete or I don't know, a standstill agreement such that you cannot buy shares as long as the AIP deal is not complete. Further, it's possible if you read this on, I mean, it's exciting, but if you just take of course I can't find the chart. Anyway, let's see if I can find it. Never find anything when you want it. Here it is. Nope, that's not it. There it is. This chart here, you've got 180 affiliates, you've got the Railtown interface, and then you've got the TELUS AI factory. This is revenue sharing here. Now, it doesn't say how much. There's three things it doesn't say. It doesn't say, is TELUS going to have all of their customers here use Conductor, or are they just going to do a best efforts and see if they want to use them? It doesn't say how many of these companies can easily move to TELUS in the short run with no hitch. In other words, it doesn't give revenue to us. And then it doesn't say what this deal is. All of that information, I'm almost legend, that is inside information. That is material, non-public information. So until the AIP deal is closed, and then I'm sure that's where I threw off, which they can't seem to close, being sarcastic. Okay, that's probably what I did, because I was about to do it again. But they can't tell us about, or tell anybody, they have no obligation to tell us. They cannot tell us about this deal until the AIP deal closes. But then if there's a group of investors, I don't know how to explain it. Let's pick on one major investor, because then I don't have to talk in generalities. This is John Ruffalo. He founded AIP along with Michael Nobrega. John Ruffalo. John Ruffalo started Mavericks Private Equity, and he just in May started Mavericks 2, $500 million to $700 million. He was the founder of Omer's Ventures, and Mike Nobrega here and John Ruffalo were the foundational investors via Omer's in Constellation Software. So this is a very powerful couple of guys. Well, let's just pick on Mavericks. Let's just say Mavericks. Let's say that John is an insider. He checks that box, right? John is a major shareholder. He checks that box. John is a founder. He checks that box. So to the extent that he manages the decision making at Mavericks, he's prohibited to have Mavericks buy shares. Let's say in addition that he has a portfolio manager at Mavericks, and she has to sign an agreement not to trade the information that is disclosed to her, even though she's not a founder or an insider, but she is now in charge of this pool of money, and she has to sign these agreements. I will not buy any shares on behalf of the company until the AIP deal closes. And we don't know, but maybe this TELUS deal is now part. I don't know how the documents are written, these non-competes, these standstill agreements, but she's agreed not to act on any material non-public information until it's made public. So that could be AIP, that could be TELUS describing what's in this document in a fashion that qualifies that it's fully disclosed. Well, all I'm saying, I'm Almost Legend, is when you get the AIP deal filed and announced, Mavericks isn't going to buy it that day. We aren't going to buy it. Who's going to buy it? My guess is the stock isn't going to respond in some massive upside way. I'm going to use my word. Screw it. I think one of the guys said it, showed me that the word is wrong. I don't know. I'm tired of not being able to express myself. The quiet period will not end immediately when the filing of AIP is made, that it's closed and it's filed. That doesn't end the quiet period. The quiet period, I know it'll be Googled and found out that it's not. What does it mean? It's not in a quiet period. All right, I got it. But I don't know what other word to use. The quiet period will not end with the filing of the closure of AIP. It may not end the day after. May not end. It depends on what's in the document, which I've never seen. On top of that, AIP might not be the only material non-public information to pick on this one fund, Mavericks. It may not be the only material non-public information that John Ruffalo and Mavericks have access to. It could be also this TELUS arrangement. So you might need TELUS to say something before the quiet period ends. It's not a quiet period. There's no such thing. All right, got it. I don't know what to call it. But from February 11th till now, the company's been in what I name as a quiet period, inaccurately. And a guy like John Ruffalo and Mavericks, and then his portfolio manager, she signs, before she sees any documents, she has to sign that, or she's bound by John's signature. And just because AIP's deal is announced, is closed and filed, it doesn't mean that Mavericks can buy. That's one company. It doesn't mean Omers can buy. It doesn't mean Fidelity can buy. It doesn't mean, XYZ Venture Capital Fund can buy. That's all I mean. I do not think it's going to have an impact on the price of the stock that's dramatic in the short run. Now, if you can expand the horizon, not you, one, can expand the horizon, unfortunately we have the holidays. And that's the other, it's just a fact. It's like having a rainstorm when you want to play ball. It's just a fact. The holidays are coming. But if you can stretch it out, the closing of the AIP deal, the further disclosure of the TELUS revenue arrangement, they're all huge. I mean, look at the numbers. They are huge. They're going to move 120 million per year of acquired and non-acquired affiliates, 120 million per year of their spend to TELUS. That is huge. And it's going to be 100% payout. I mean, it's going to be, the margin will be 99.5% free cash flow on, I don't know what multiple. See, that's what we don't know. Let's say they get 15% of it. It's $15 to $17 million. That's what Line Chain is supposedly doing, valued at 1.2. But remember, that's 100% free cash flow. And then you see this well, anyway, it doesn't matter. The 400 million, I can't find it, in the affiliates that they're going to roll up, that's huge. So it's a tremendous acquisition, and it's going to lead to the stock probably, in my judgment, assuming they do not issue more than the numbers I've shown you in shares, I think the stock will be $20, $30, $40 a share. But not next week, not this week. That's all I'm saying. I'm not changing my view that in January and February, the stock's not going to respond extremely well to the acquisition of AIP. What I'm saying is tomorrow and Tuesday and Wednesday, and when the AIP deal is announced, I don't need to show it to you again, I guess. The technical pattern, which is completely different than fundamental analysis, the technical pattern shows that the stock has broken down. I don't think to get the stock back in a bullish trend, I don't think closing the AIP deal is going to revolutionize the stock price this week, and maybe not next week. But that's all I'm saying. Very short-term disappointment. Very short-term disappointment. But it sets up, I'm almost legend, it sets up what I think will be a TELUS announcement. And then the two things that should follow on from that are at least one research report discussing, I hope, revenues, but maybe more. And I hope, again, just to use one fund because it's simpler, and then I hope Maverick starts buying into the company. but I don't expect that to happen the day, the second day, the third day, the fourth day after the AIP deal is closed and announced. I don't expect that major buying to come in. I could be surprised, but I don't expect it. That's all I'm saying. And then you have the holidays. I don't know how to factor that in. In the case of Mavericks, I think they will be buyers through the holidays. But to new institutions, I do not know how to factor in the fact that their decision makers are going to be skiing at Stad. I don't know how to factor in. So I think the whole upside story might get moved to January. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that for some reason the price of the stock being down is telling you that the AIP deal is bad. The AIP deal is single-handedly going to bring as much as 300, 400, 500 million in revenues, and possibly more to the company with high margins. This is a great deal, but because of this system is set up so that the shorts can continue to sell stock that does not exist, pressuring the stock, and in what I can only call a quiet period from February 11th until tonight, the company cannot talk about anything that matters. And then major buyers cannot buy. We're sitting in a position where the buyers are absent and the sellers are magnified and the stock price is down. And I don't see that the simple announcement that AIP is closed is going to change that dynamic. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I don't think it's going to do much this week. That's all I mean. I don't mean it condemning the story further on. There's two keys here. There's only two keys. There's only two keys. With a predicate. As long as the company stays away from bad financing deals, which I think they will. But so I'm assuming that away. There's only two things that matter here. Revenues and the projection of revenues. They have not been able to talk to that. I'll use my term, which Brandon found out doesn't exist, of a quiet period. They haven't been able to talk about it. We still do not know about revenue, but we have some indications here. The second thing is institutional buying, because retail's spent. In the United States, there will be no additional retail buying other than people that we talk to. And maybe it gets a meme going. That could happen. But in terms of a Merrill Lynch or a Raymond James or a UBS or a Morgan Stanley telling their clients to buy it, it's not going to happen. Until it could happen once the stock's $10, but it's not going to happen down here. In Canada, to get retail to buy, you're going to need research first. Research is not going to come out the day, the next day, the following day after the AIP deal closes. So I don't think releasing the AIP news is going to do much for the stock. It might rebound into that 40-cent, 44-cent range, which is where it was last week. I mean, the week before. To me, that's not doing that much. Had the news come out 2 months ago, it might have immediately driven the stock to $1.20, $1.50. I just don't. The way the technical chart is, it's telling you in the short run, the pressure of the constant selling of non-existent shares, Flash Boy style, has changed the mood of investors enough that the chart, it's broken down. People aren't buying in enough volume to offset that. That's all I'm saying. So I'm mixing a technical indicator with a fundamental. I'm not saying there's anything fundamentally wrong with the company. I'm saying technically, I don't see this stock doing a whole hell of a lot this week. Now, it could, frankly, I don't remember let me look where it closed in the United States. I think it was 34 cents. Yeah, 34 cents. I suppose you could say that if it went to 42 cents, that would be a 10% move? More? 11%? And that's a big move. But to me, that's not much because the stock was already anyway, I'm just repeating myself. Let me see what's going on. What's going on is technically the stock has broken down. So the momentum technically is out of the stock. That can change on a dime. Technicals can change on a dime. But that's one thing. The other thing that's going on is that the stock has been in a 10-month, using my word, quiet period where insiders, major investors, knowledgeable investors, investors with money cannot buy the stock. Research cannot come out. Recommendations to brokerage firms' clients in Canada cannot be made. And that's just where we are. And if that quiet period ends because they announce that they finished the deal, there's a lag. There's a lag because you've got to make sure the news has been fully distributed if you're trying to avoid lawsuits. There may be other news that needs to be disclosed that's built up during this 10 months that insiders know about. So it might not be the only thing that needs to be released before these buyers can come in. To me, all of that means that it's 2 or 3 weeks away before institutions can buy. There's going to have to be research, sharing of knowledge, all of that. That runs in the face of a continued selling pressure, which will try to convince you as soon as that deal is done that it's bad news. It's mechanical. It doesn't mean anything. But you have to take that in. I feel like I have to take that into account to predict how the stock's trading. It's hard to do. And then holidays are coming. I don't know. I really don't know. My gut tells me that institutional buying will be very light from the second week of December, end of the second, latter part of the second week of December, all the way through to the second week in January. But I could be wrong. I don't know how institutions are in Canada. I think Mavericks, you only need one institution to firm this up. I think Mavericks will come in. Almers might come in. But I don't know enough about that. So I guess I'm not trying to be negative on the story. I'm trying to acknowledge that the cumulative effect of computer selling of stock and no information flow that means much, although this is very good, as I've told you. But have you noticed this has had any effect on the stock price? I haven't. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Quit that. William, I'm quite upset with what has transpired with RT. Prices down 50% from the high and not a peep from management. It is down 50% from the high. I think that's right. Let me quickly add it up. Yeah, you're right. It's down 50%. And not a peep for not acceptable. Seems like it would have been better if RT never agreed to the merger. Yeah, I think it's a great merger. It's a beautiful merger. It's huge. But I think what would have been better maybe is if they had raised $250,000 and called up called up a different law firm. Or I'm not sure it's their law firm is the problem. It might be the other law firm. I'm not even sure that's the problem. It might be the regulators. I don't know. But I think they should have raised some money to get a dedicated team to make sure the AIP deal closed. Look, it may close. I mean, it may miraculously get filed tomorrow, but we're in a period where we just have to tamp down our expectations for speed. And I agree with you. I'm not pleased with it. I just misspoke by being probably sarcastic, but maybe it's just how I presented it. So I confused. Understandably, I'm almost legend. I'm frustrated by it. I do not see why this transaction could not have been closed. September. I thought it could be closed in May. But let me give you an example. I'm not sure these guys, they've managed money, they've been on boards, they've built software companies. I'm not positive, but the two guys at Railtown and then the three guys at AIP, I'm not sure any of them have run a public company. I may be wrong on that. But there's things, for example, with acquiring AIP. AIP was going to go public on its own. So they sought shareholders, because you need, I'll make it up, I don't know the number, but you need 100 shareholders to float on a Canadian exchange. Maybe it's 150 or 200. I don't know the number. But they only had their founders and their close investors. So, which apparently represents 52% of the overall number of shares, these guys that voted for this merger. But I guess in what I've heard in Canada, I forgot to Google it, but what I've heard, and it depends on your articles of incorporation too, but to approve this merger, it's a percentage of shares. And then in the document, one of the documents, I think it was the 102-page document, it said that they intend, I don't remember the exact wording, but it indicated they were going to get unanimous, in other words, 100% of the shares to vote. Well, those things take time, and they may have assumed it would be easy. And, you've got shareholders in a bunch of spread out towns in Canada. And if you're going to get 100%, you got to maybe have to get blue ink signatures. It's a campaign. So I think they probably should have set up a war room. I mean, it's easy to criticize in retrospect. Who knows? But probably a dedicated war room, and just made nothing else the priority. On the other hand, it looks like a lot of other, like this TELUS deal, just surprised everybody. Of course, it doesn't show, and that's a good example. I'm almost legend. That TELUS deal, when it was announced, that's a massive deal, absolutely massive deal. But the stock didn't go up. And that's what I'm talking about. So I'm not trying to say that the news is bad. I'm trying to figure out how the stock's going to trade. It's tricky. So I'm not negative on it at all. But anyway, Clay, I think they maybe would have been better served if they hired a point person to, I mean, if it were me, of course, there's not enough time. I mean, we don't know what else has been going on. I think I cut my finger. But if it had been me, and that's not really Corey, that's more AIP's side, maybe Dr. Tom Coors, and maybe he did do it. But I would be on the phone with every single shareholder in AIP. I would have been on the phone 100 days ago, 120 days ago, every single one of them. Here's my phone number. This is what, but I don't know. People get busy, and, it's just life. You get caught up. Maybe they got caught up in other transactions, other exciting things. And, up until recently, Railtown was a very small management team at the top. And they must have a boardroom full of software engineers. But, for the business to go from zero to big, I don't know if they have enough people. And it's an art, not a science. By not going overboard on spending, they're not having to go to the Toad or to Lynn Partners to do financing that destroys the company. So it's frustrating, but I think they're doing the best they can, I guess. All of my sarcasm aside. No one getting back to me is not good business practice. Yeah, I've got a mixed feeling on that. On the one hand, I mean, I don't know what's going on in there. I'm sure they're busy, and I think their execution of I always forget enterprise sales agreements. That should be the only thing they're focused on at Railtown. AIP is where they have to get the vote accomplished, but Railtown just should be focused like a hawk on getting those revenues locked down. And if they're doing that and they don't have time to, particularly during a quiet period, talk to retail, it makes sense to me. That's fine. On the other hand, I think it would help it'd probably calm me down, but it'd probably calm a lot of people down if they could do it. But remember, again, I can't use this term, but it's the only term I know. The quiet period hasn't ended. I got to come up with a different term, but the 10-month period hasn't ended. So they can't talk, so it's, yeah, they got to get the AIP deal finished. They probably have to disclose the TELUS arrangement best they can. And they may have other things in their pipeline they have to disclose before that. I'm sorry, I don't know what word to use. The quiet period ends. And but Clay, the point that the stock is down from its high 50% is that happens. No stock goes straight up. And particularly when there is a lack of information, and when we run out of, not all of us, but many of us don't have money to buy, there you can get volatility in there. But I mean, I'm shocked. I personally sold G-Bucks, and I was petrified based on what everybody was talking about, that G-Bucks was going to squeeze. And I sold it. I didn't have a lot. I don't know. I'm looking at the chart. I can't tell. June. Maybe I got. Could I have received $4 for it? I don't think I got $5. Anyway, I got a number like that, and I didn't want to look because it was going to squeeze. But now it's 14 cents. So I do think Railtown is held up, considering the market has been selling off. And some of these others, for me anyway, the ones I was in, they've been destroyed. I mean, Energy Vault went up, of course. But so in that context, Railtown has held in there. But yeah, it's frustrating that they haven't been able to close it. I don't know, Clay, what I don't know how it would relate in your profession, but I remember, and it always happened with my biggest clients, when nothing would go wrong with a 100 share order. Some would go wrong with a 10,000 share order, and you go in to try to fix it, and it just gets worse. Or if there's paperwork, I mean, I won't go into that long story, but I won't. It's just, it's too painful to even remember. But one of my clients had had, well, given me request to issue shares to overnight, to pay. It was complicated, but I had to overnight something like $90 million in $94 million or something. Back when that was a lot of money, had to overnight it um, to meet a deadline to acquire. I guess it was to acquire stock on behalf of my client, and it was a bunch of checks. So there were sub clients, but anyway, my sales assistant, who I was fairly, you know, I wasn't a hard ass boss, but she was going to Dewey Beach that weekend. I guess her mind on a fella. So on her way out, she dropped the FedEx envelope into a U.S. post office box. Of course, we didn't find that out until 2 months later, 6, 7 weeks later. But that was, needless to say, my best account at the time. And he wanted instant results, and I couldn't fix it. I tried. I called the chairman of the company called me, and he respected me. They said, "You can't call so and so." I forget the name. Regional manager. You can't call him on the golf course. I said, why not? Why can't I? My point is, you can try to do everything. You're working hard. You're doing everything the right way, and it something goes wrong, and it keeps going wrong, and whatever you try to do, it just seems like it gets worse and worse. Eventually, it ends, and you forget all about it. Becomes a story that you may or may not remember. But I think Railtown will be acquiring AIP shortly, and it will be announced, and this whole period of time will be over with. But there's no question, Clay, that the stock was 50% higher, or I guess 100% higher, That's the problem. It's down 50%, but to get back where it was, it'd be 100%. So it was 100% higher when everyone thought this deal was going through. And I guess going back to I'm Almost Legend, that's all I'm cautioning about. I don't think the stock is going to go back to 70 cents just like that once the deal's announced. I guess that's probably the best way to put it. But it will at some point. It will at some point. It will at some point. Let me just go down further. I'm Almost Legend. You don't have to apologize for typing messages. A lot of thoughts about this. Admittedly, I was surprised after doing a deeper dive into Canadian Stock Exchange laws and regulations that you weren't aware of their timeframes. Well, respectfully, I don't think it's the Canadian Stock Exchange timeframe that matters. I was aware of the regulatory, and I forget the name of it, Puro or something, their regulatory timeframes. And I've already disclosed that all to you. 30 days, within 30 days, the deal normally gets approved. The Canadian Stock Exchange is not as, that's about listing. That's not about the regulatory approval. And then if it's not approved, it's because it hurts competition. So they take another 30 days. And I won't bore you. I looked all that up. The 10 days on the Canadian Stock Exchange is a listing requirement. And I've tried to be respectful that you did the work to look that up, but I don't think it's that important, the 10 days. We're trying, understandably, we're trying to, I don't think it has anything to do with those 10 days. I unfortunately expressed what I think it is, and I'm not going to do that anymore. But there's a different attitude in the workplace nowadays than there used to be, in my judgment. But maybe it's not that, and I don't want to revisit that. I don't think the 10 days has anything to do with anything. I think this is a case where there's two law firms. There's a bureaucratic regulatory staff. These offices have changed over time. They have different cultures now. And let's just go through it. It could be that the company did not spend enough on attorneys, and so they're not getting premier client attention. I don't know. It could be that the company decided to split the work with the attorneys and themselves. That's possible. it could be that the valuation that I assume Canaccord was hired to do came back as a surprise to both companies. And so that whatever negotiation they had agreed, they had to kind of duke it out for a while in a friendly way, and that took time. It could be that this issue of getting a percentage of shares to vote versus a percentage of shareholders might have delayed it. It could be that when they renegotiated to look, this very complicated structure to me reeks of a compromise. So it's likely that Railtown wanted to pay fewer shares to acquire AIP. And let me just be simplistic. Let's say it was 15% of the overall company at post-merger. And they ended up paying something like 22.5%. Well, one, that negotiation might have taken a while, but also Railtown might have said, you know what? If we do this, we want to know that all of those 170 companies are tied to us for at least 18 months or at least 3 years. I'm making it up. Because if we buy your network and all the companies run away over to Lang Chain, well, what have we purchased? So it's possible, I don't know it, but it's possible that the company said to their attorneys, make sure that every single one of those companies signs a re-up agreement. So we have at least 3 years of time where we can roll up these companies. I don't know, but in other words, we don't know what delayed the acquisition, but it could be there were paperwork issues on a grand scale that work in our favor. Because the last thing we want them to do is do a sloppy job of acquiring it. And then the 170 companies fritter away. It's not happening. They're up to 185 or something in here, over 180. Seems to be growing. So I think maybe what would have been helpful is if they could have broken the cone of silence and managed expectations a little bit without violating anything. Look, everyone, we said it would be weeks. Fact is, we're now expecting it to be 10 months. Well, that would have been helpful. That would have been really helpful. But with respect, I'm almost legend. The rules on the Canadian Stock Exchange don't matter in this transaction. I tried to be respectful to your research, and I appreciate it too, because it gives some filing time for the Canadian Stock Exchange. That's not the, let me get the name of the Canadian SEC. Oh, they don't have one. They have the Canadian Securities Administrators. That's not the one I remember. They have provincial and territorial. They have the CSA. Here's the one, CIRO, Canadian Investment Regulatory Organization, CIRO, CIRO. So anyway, you weren't aware of the timeframes, how they are regarding merger deals. It seems that some of your predictions were for U.S. pace rather than Canadian. Yeah, I had no idea. Look, to be blunt, I'm almost legend. I accepted your time frame you came up with the CSE. It doesn't matter. I actually used it to delay our expectations, and I appreciate that very much. But it's irrelevant to what's going on here. I think the issue is with the regulators, not CS. I don't think it's the CSE. I think it's this CIRO. I'm not clear. There's also CSA, but I think it's this other one, CIRO. They have to submit it. It's confusing. I mean, it's confusing here, SEC, FINRA, but I think we're stuck in a little bit of a bureaucratic nightmare right now. And I think the initial delay from October 6th was getting a large, which ultimately they want unanimous number of shareholders, not shares. So if you picture, the founders all voted for it, but they have a large number of shares, and then they had expanded the number of shareholders just to meet the requirement to go public, but they don't own a lot of shares compared to the founders. But to get 100%, maybe you had to go to 100 shareholders. And that takes a while, particularly if you put it off to the attorneys. It's going to take a while. I would do it myself as a CEO. I'm sure they did. Just call them directly, each one. But it took a while, you know. So ironically, AIP was getting ready to go public, and the thing they did to enhance going public slowed down their ability to merge with Railtown. And that's nobody's fault. But anyway, it's the CSE filing, I think, is just pretty automatic. The problem here is with the regulators, I think, and with making sure they get all the proper paperwork in. I don't know if that is a regulatory problem, an attorney problem, a administrative problem, or a combination of all three. I don't know. It just could be there's so many human beings involved here. 175 companies. I just really don't know, but it is frustrating. Hey T, Alex. I'll come back on Almost Legend. I bought more Roadhouse this week, Mad Creek. All right. I'll come back to you. I'm Almost Legend. I really just want to get some positives out there. Just one. I don't know. It's 10 o'clock. Maybe I'll just leave it for tomorrow. Yeah, I guess I'll leave it for tomorrow. We are under pressure for the exact same thing I keep saying over and over and over again. Because the AIP deal hasn't closed and been filed, therefore, a lot of important buyers, potential buyers of the stock, have been blocked from buying. Therefore, other deals may have come along that are also material news, and that those also may be blocking all this significant potential buyers from buying, and maybe those different news stories need to be announced as well. And it's just this cumulative effect of the company not being able to say anything, and then a whole bunch of buyers not being able to buy, and it shakes everybody's confidence. And then in the face of it, it's just this selling, and the stock breaks down. And then we try to find reasons that are more elaborate than that, but there aren't any. There aren't any. I don't want to blame anybody, but it's expensive. To go to Clay's point, this process has cost tens of millions of dollars in market cap, and I think it could have been handled better. But then again, every great battle could, it's easy to criticize looking backward when you're in there trying to make things happen. What we don't know, we're all, I am anyway, focused on this process. What I don't know, how many new enterprise sales agreements have they lined up? What other tie-ups do they have with major or small companies? That's going to be exciting. So we don't know that it's a question that nobody's done anything. I just think perhaps I don't know. Dedicating more resources, whether it's money, time, top level attention to getting this AIP deal done more quickly might have been good, but we just don't know. All right, let me go back to I'm Almost Legend. Okay, here's a question that I'm Almost Legend says, I'm just concerned if they continue to drop it enough, it would take a lot of buying to get it even near $1. Okay, now that's something that I think that's a great question, and that's something worth considering. If enough buyers trickle in after the merger, raise the price. Well, see, that's the thing. The sellers aren't going to go away because the sellers are just it might even be in the cloud now, but it's just a computer software program that just is, mimeographing new shares. So the sellers aren't going to stop. the key is to get buyers in there. And I don't know, maybe you could Google that. How many, maybe I could Google it. Let's just do it with Mavericks. Does Mavericks I forgot the rest of that name. Mavericks. I forget the rest of his name. Fund. I'll go just call it Mavericks Fund in Canada. Buy stocks. Such a simple question. In December. There's more than one. Mavericks Private Equity. Let's see. Year founded 2021. Canadian venture capital and private equity. They block out, this service blocks out the deals they do because I'd have to pay for it. Toronto, Canada. They've made 9 investments. Raptor Maps, Cody Labs, Traffic Technology Services. And that doesn't give me enough information. Let's go to their website. Mavericks Private. All right, let's see. We invest in technology-driven companies. Is this the same Mavericks? Let me see who's leading it. It's got a lot of pictures of women, which is great, but it doesn't have a picture of John Ruffalo. Catherine Baxter Cook, Carrie Gaulick. There's a guy. Yana Mystery. I don't think, oh, there he is. There's John Ruffalo. Yeah, he's built a hell of a team. Okay, so let me see what their portfolio. Agora, Cody Labs, Myo Vision, Raptor Maps, Viral Nation. So they spend 10 million to 100 million. I wonder if they buy public companies. 20 million to 100 million. They invest in robots, it looks like. I don't know. I'll try to get more information on that. But your question is a good one. I don't think it's going to go to $1 next week. That's all I was trying to say. I think it can go to $1 by I just don't think anything will happen in the last half of December. So if it doesn't go to $1 this week, I'm not sure about next week. That kind of gives us the second week of December. Can it get to $1? I guess it could if, a couple of funds came in to buy. But I'm almost legend. I think there's a real risk that everything's going to be shifted to January. Why don't we see what happens this week with the news, if it comes? If, let's say, I'm almost legend, let's say they announced or filed it anyway, filed that they purchased IAP. And then let's just say that's Wednesday morning. Let's say Thursday morning, maybe we hear about a revenue deal, maybe TELUS, maybe a different thing that is also included in the need to disclose file. And let's say there's another one on Friday. So let's say by Monday, the limitation on buying is removed by next month, not this week, following Monday. And let's further say that a lot of institutions haven't heard the story yet. And so that the company decides to go the strategy of talking to research analysts. So that would be not this week, but the following week. That's the first week of December. Analysts talk to them the first week of December, and they start writing their reports, and they come back with questions in the second week of December. And there's vacations ever present, Canadian vacations. Research might not come out till the third week in December. And yeah, it's bothering me. I don't know what gets it to $1 this week. Basically, in the second week of December, I'd like to see it get to $1. And if it needs research, I don't think research is going to do it. Is it going to do in time? In time. That's all I'm talking about. Is it going to be revenue deals? Yeah, maybe. I mean, we don't know. They could put revenue deals out and things start moving. I do think the capital research deal research will come out. Heck, I bet it could even come out this week because they're so logical as a company. They already have research out, so it's just logical they would get theirs out quickly. I don't know. I'm almost legend. Let's see what you say. If buyers trickle in after the merger, hopefully those buyers can purchase enough to boost the price. Well, that's the other thing. Institutions may not be able to buy under $1. Oh, Lordy. Yeah, you're zeroing in on my conundrum. I just think this week ahead is going to be difficult. I could be wrong, but I think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is going to be difficult. And then it can recover, but it may only recover to 40, 45 cents. Oh, sorry. By the beginning of next week, following week, it would have to be a big surprise announcement of something just completely unexpected to get it over $1. But it could happen, I'm almost legend. What we forget is just because they haven't been able to tell us anything doesn't mean nothing's going on. As great as the TELUS deal is, you know, maybe they're going to do a deal with Nokia. I don't know. I made it up. But my point is, there could be another one or two or three deals that get the market really excited. But you've nailed it. And then my concern is this week with the price action. Tomorrow and the next day could be tough. I could be wrong. It can change just like that. But I just think we're running out of time this year, which really is upsetting in terms of I guess in terms of short-term feelings or expectations, I guess. But look, I don't think it means that any of the upside potential is missing. It's just this frustrating further delay, which I'm. You can tell. I mean, I never thought it would go on this long. Revenue projections, announcements. Next earning. What? Their next earnings announcement is January 22nd. That doesn't make sense. Unless they filed for an extension. They've got to do their annual report. Let me see what Yahoo says. Doesn't have a date. They got to do their annual report, and I would expect that this week or next. Why don't I Google it? When does Railtown AI file its fourth quarter earnings? While some financial Railtown Seeking Alpha shows November 14th. However, no specific date for the company's fourth quarter earnings has been announced or listed in the search. It says a report January 28th, 2025 discussed the financial position for the year ended September 30, 2024. So anyway, that's what, if you go from September 30, October 30, add 2 weeks, That's November 15th. That's normally when they get it done. But an annual report, maybe it's the end of November. I don't know. Latest release, August 29. I don't know that I saw that one. Maybe I did. I saw the most recent one. Oh no, that's the monthly update. Yeah, it is a learning experience. All right, I'm almost legend. I think I will. I wanted to go over. There's some very positive ways of looking at this, and I think I'll save it for tomorrow because I can feel my head skipping a beat. But the key thing I want to get across tomorrow is Railtown. Of course, it says AI in its title, but if you compare it to software developers, they have high multiples, and that business is huge. And so even if there's a correction in NVIDIA's stock price and the other hyperscaler stock prices, and maybe open chat or whatever, Railtown is still addressing a huge uh, uh, software market. So I had a couple things to read to you, but I'm just too tired. So anyway, if tomorrow the stock is down, maybe the best way is to put some orders in under the market before it opens. I hope I'm seeing ghosts, and I hope maybe it rallies nicely just from the start. And wouldn't it be nice if I'm wrong on this instinct right now? But don't be. My opinion is don't be afraid for the fundamentals of the company. Don't be afraid for the story in January, February, and March. It's just this short-term difficulty. And I'm sorry. I mean, I should have foreseen it. I didn't. So anyway, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to sleep, and we'll talk tomorrow. So peace, everyone. Thank you.